All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Watch Well Podcast. I'm your host, Parker, and we are still at Fight, Laugh, Feast, and it's a blast.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. We're recording so many cool interviews with other people. It's really like a family here, you know? It really is.
It is. Like, everybody here is just pumped to meet you. Even though they've never seen you before,
yeah.
nothing. Like, who are you?
Yeah, it's like your long-lost brother or sister. Yeah. Well, I've got a guest with me today, Charlton.
That's right. Good job saying my name, man.
I did, Charlton.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've heard it so many times in the podcast that you guys have had me edit.
Yeah, you know what's funny is, my whole life, I grew up like in the West, and 99% of the time, people would not say my name right when they'd see it written down. It'd be,
Well, how would they say it?
they'd say, "Oh, Carlton."
Oh.
Like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
Can you do the dance?
Can you do that?
That would be like the conversation.
That's right.
Right. And then I moved to Tennessee.
Right.
And immediately, everyone, hello, Charlton. Charlton. They read it. Oh, Charlton. Call my name out from whatever from my order.
Yeah.
Charlton. Like, how does everybody here know? How does everybody? Like, I guess the West just doesn't know how to read.
I guess not. No. The phonetics and it's hard sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Public schools?
It's like public school. I went to a public school.
I did too.
Man, I tell you.
Yeah. It's a little
Homeschool
different
your
these
kids,
days.
you
It's a
know,
little different
like,
these days,
oh,
right?
man,
That's right. All right, so we gotta do the rapid fire questions before we get started.
Oh, dude, go for it.
Right before the rapid fire questions, I want you to talk about the Forge, Reformation Red Pill,
Absolutely.
and then introduce what we're gonna talk about a little bit too here. Okay.
Okay, absolutely.
All of it. I want to hear all of it.
You just want me to just give you that spill right now?
All of it.
All right, so I'm Charlton. I'm
Yeah,
with
go
the
for it.
Forge Press, and the Forge Press is, our mission statement is to provide tools and resources to help build, defend, and expand the new Christendom, where we want to equip the next generation, and generally our generation, right? I'm a millennial, right? Who grew up with like the culture coming in from the TV,
Right.
at the house,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, well, what does a good, solid Christian family culture, a very robust family culture look like that will actually take root and plant itself into the next generation, like for our children, right? Because there's so many, I've met so many Christians who grew up in a Christian household and they fell away.
Right.
And why? Well, it's all culture. It's all culture. And so how do we do that? How do we do that well? So that's why we started the Forge. And we first started the Forge a year ago at this conference, 1 year ago. We started the Forge, and then there was a booth right next to us, and we had one offering. It's like we spun up an offering really quick to try and sell. It was the family identity package. And then we had a booth right next to us that was empty. And Joshua had brought a camera. And so he was like, I'm going to ask all these guys about Christian nationalism. Because he had all the people. It was like Douglas Wilson. And, you know.
All the names.
All the names. Yeah, Stephen. Well, like all the names are here, right?
Right.
Joe Libbon, all of them. And so he just did all these interviews. And that is how Reformation Red Pill started.
That's
so we're like,
so
okay,
cool.
we know that we can do low-hanging fruit because it's all digital. We can do low-hanging fruit. That's where we know to start. So we're just going to start. And we're going to see how this thing might, grows.
Yeah, and that blends in really well with what we do because, we're here to destroy the passive consumption of entertainment.
Right.
Yeah. Indoctrination is going to happen. It's just whether it's positive or negative.
Right. Exactly. It
awesome.
happens. It's just like everything is tied to some form of morality. It's not a matter of whether but which.
It always comes back down to objective or subjective morality.
Exactly.
Worldview. So we try to hit that hard here.
Absolutely.
Reformation Red Pill, you kind of talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. So Reformation Red Pill is a show that we have. You should check it out on YouTube or Spotify, podcasts. And it's really, Joshua Hames took it because he said, this entire journey that I've been on has completely changed my life. Joshua Hames, if you don't know, he planted a church in LA, like by Venice Beach, not far. And he planted it in March of 2020, 2 weeks before COVID hit. And 2 weeks into COVID, or 2 weeks later, COVID hit, everything was shut down. And so then he was like, okay, well, how do we do church? And then at the time that they were like, Jesus is coming back tomorrow, like dispensational mindset,
right.
kamikaze church plant, put it all on the line for Jesus, which, obviously, yes, we are called to pick up our cross and follow Christ. But when you have eschatology, your eschatology will, and how you think the end times will influence how you think through today and responsibilities and what is the right thing. And so it does affect. And so he started going down the road, him and his co-pastor, Daniel, and another friend, they all started going down, looking through Daniel, and they all came to the conclusions like, whoa, we've been wrong in thinking about how end times happen.
Right.
And they turned post-mill, right? They're like, no, we're going to win. Jesus, there's going to be more people in heaven than hell in the end.
Right.
Like, we are victorious people. The gates of Hades will not prevail against us. And this is not this world is not God's Vietnam.
Right.
Right? So they came to that conclusion altogether, and then they were like,
And
oh,
Abraham's descendants are going to be as numerous as the stars.
Right, exactly.
Like grains of sand, like all these things, right?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what
and the
we're-
knowledge of the Lord will cover the earth
Amen.
as the waters cover the sea. And so they were like, wait a minute. And then all of a sudden the implications hit. They're like, whoa. Well, if that's the case, then why?
It becomes
like,
very practical at that point.
practical. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, we need to think more generationally.
Right.
And then they started realizing, like, well, none of us, like, we're all younger. None of us can afford any property.
Yeah, we're broke.
We're all putting off having children because we can't afford them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've been doing this backwards. And then they realized we have to shut down our church.
Yeah, that's a
Right?
big one.
And so, but that was the beginning of their Reformation Red Pill.
Yeah, the red
right.
pill.
And
yeah.
so, but it
Well, the
changes
good
life.
red pill because online
there's another red
there's
pill.
another red pill, and that we
Right.
can stay away from that one.
Right. But you come join the Reformed Red Pill.
Right,
Right.
man, yeah.
And so that was the journey. And so it was so impactful that he was like, I just want to do a show. Because there's so many other people that are doing the same journey, and that's why it's happening across the country. That's why you have a mass exodus from the evangelical world into Catholicism or Eastern Orthodox, or the Reformers, right? And we're on the Reformers side, like no, come here, come here, right? So that's the Reformation Red Pill podcast, and we go through all sorts of cool stuff. You're in the Discord,
that's right.
Yeah, and so we go through all sorts of really cool stuff in there. You should totally join the Knox series.
Yeah, man.
It's your best. Get
a Men of Issachar tumbler.
Get a Man of Issachar tumbler. We'll send it your way. If you're at the conference, you get a free hat too.
Okay.
With the Men of Issachar tumbler.
That's awesome.
To join the Knox tier, and then you get to be a part of a book club. You get the entire.
And I
community.
can actually speak to the Discord. If you guys are trying to, if Christian guys are trying to take dominion on X
online, yeah,
online.
Yep.
You can join the Discord, and it's a great community of believing guys that have a heart for the Lord, but want to do just that, take dominion. They want to get their content out, and they want to speak.
Yeah, and we want you to do it well, where you're not enslaved to X
to the
YouTube,
media
or
platform.
exactly.
Right.
You don't
Right.
become a consumer. Like, we want you to be a producer. We are builders on this earth.
Yeah.
And that's what we're called to
Dude,
do.
that's heavy stuff.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
It's fun, man. It's a
Okay,
good life.
tell me about the hat. You got to get the hat out there. You got to
Okay,
go
so
online,
yeah,
you got to buy their hat.
Yeah, Make America Christian again, because a lot of people think like, well, we were never a Christian nation. We're a neutral nation.
Yeah.
Like, it was always that way. Separation of church and
Let's
state.
just forget about all that general.
Let's
equity
forget
dogma
about
stuff.
all of that. It doesn't matter that 99% of the people that were here that founded this nation were Protestant.
Yeah.
Now we're like 10% because we gave all of our understanding and everything, farmed it out to government schools.
Yeah.
Let the nanny state take over. Right, and then followed the narrative of the left, essentially, from 100 years ago.
Right.
And saying like, okay, well, we just kept giving up our strongholds there.
The deconstruction of the family unit, like all that stuff, right?
Everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right, everything. And so but Make America Christian again is saying like, no, like, you look back, it's like, this country was founded as a Christian nation, which is why you have all the constitutions. It's like, well, but the Constitution, it's like, yeah, but that Constitution is only as good as objective as you can hold an objective moral standpoint.
Right.
And it was not made for irreligious people.
Right.
And so even with the separation of church and state, it was never that. It was never that the government.
It was a national religion.
Right. It was never that the government would rule over the state.
Right.
Or that, I'm sorry, the government will rule over the church.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was the point of it. Not that the church would not influence the government by any means. Because
Right.
the truth is, at the end of the day, everything is religious.
Yeah, everything is theological.
Everything is.
You have general equity, laws that come from the Bible. If you remove the church, I mean, laws should reflect morality.
Yeah.
And if you have a subjective form of morality, you're going to get into impartiality, equal weight, unequal weights and measures,
Yep.
and
It's an abomination of the Lord.
It is, and ultimately, you have to have a foundation and a justification for why you have a law.
Yeah.
And the only logical, if you take things to its logical conclusion, the only way to do that is to have it rooted in Scripture.
Yep.
Or else you're just chaff in the wind,
Yeah.
blowing,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You're any way, following the wind.
Yep.
So-
yep, absolutely. And then and they did. You see it play out in so many areas, but you also just even see it play out in our language because we're living 1984 right
We
now.
are, yeah,
I mean,
it's
this is
Orwellian
insane.
for
Like
sure.
even like you even hear Christians. I hear Christians at this conference, right? And it's not even at knocking them. It's just like because it's so built into our culture, you don't even understand. It's like, oh well, we really care about our Christian values. It's like, well, you ditch that word,
Right.
value, ditch it. They never used that word 100 years ago. They weren't using values, my values and your values, because values are subjective. You value
Right,
something different than
right.
my value. How am I going to hold you to any kind of standard?
But
They didn't talk values. You know what they talked? Virtues.
Right, virtues.
That's not
That's right.
virtuous.
Right.
That's not
But
virtuous.
even words like, my wife and I talk about this all the time in the car. That's when we usually have our conversations when we can get the kids to, be quiet.
Yeah.
Get a word in. Those 4-year-olds, they like to talk. But even words like love.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, who can define love? Not humans.
Yeah.
Because only the Bible and God can define love.
Yeah.
So, love is not inclusive. It's, it's patient, kind.
Yeah.
Does not envy, does not boast. All these things, right? Yeah. Keeps
Yeah.
no records wrong. So you have to get back to a biblical definition of things because that's the only way to justify.
And that's the thing that built this nation.
It is, absolutely.
That's what it is. Make America Christian again, right? It's like
Right.
that's the thing that built this nation. And so we wanted to make this hack. So we're riding on the coattails of Make America Great Again.
Right.
But it's really not that great without Christ, guys.
Amen.
I mean, it's
Amen.
Christ or chaos, and that's
Amen.
where we're at, right?
All right, let's talk about the book.
Oh yeah. So on the side though, my wife also my wife is she's awesome. Okay, my wife.
She's really encouraging.
She's super great. She's the best.
Yeah,
right?
I posted a picture on X of my setup, and she was telling me, oh, you did a great job. You're at Fight Life Feast, and I was like, yeah, I'm at Fight Life Feast, and I said, come bring your book, and I'll interview you. And she's like, I'm not at Fight Life Feast, and I said, send your husband as a proxy, girl.
Yeah, no. Then she took a screenshot of that and sent it to me. So I'm like, I guess here I am. Really?
Here you are. This is why you came to Fight Life Feast.
Look, I want to promote my business, but honestly,
this is really why you're here.
This is really why I'm here. I could not be when you talk about Proverbs 31. It's like, this is my wife living and acting.
Yeah, man.
It is so cool to see, right? I see my wife, she works her tail off, right? And by the grace of God, since we first got married, when we got married, we're both on the same page. We will do everything within our power to be a one-income family when we have kids. And that means even if we're poor and we're living in a trailer, that we were going to do that. And by the grace of God, we have been able to do that, and we so far I've stayed out of a trailer, which is nice.
That's nice.
But I mean, hey, if it is what it is, then
better
we have to
or worse,
go,
man.
Better or worse, yeah. But to see her now, we have 3 children. I call them the golden years right now, because I don't have any teenagers, but I also don't have to wipe anybody's butt.
That's nice.
Right? And so it's like, all right, cool. And it's mostly laughs and giggles and play.
There you
right?
go.
It's the golden years.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
And she's doing homeschooling, being a full-time mom and a homemaker, right? And then she wrote a book. And the book is amazing because, for so long, when you work, there's a point where you're gonna not really, if you don't get reward back, if you're not getting
Right.
reward, it's really hard to keep pushing forward, especially
Right.
when you're just by yourself.
Yeah, and us guys doing this social media stuff, we really understand that.
It's so hard. And
the
but
long game.
she, for 5 years, we read a book. We read the Wingfeather Saga. Have you read the Wingfeather Saga?
I haven't.
Oh man, they're fantastic.
I'll have to check them out.
Andrew Peterson, it's a Christian one. The first book was, you could tell it was his first book he ever wrote. And I was like, I don't know about this story, but I had some friends who read through it, and they're like, you've really got, just stay with it. It's really good. And 1.5 books in is when it really, you're
Takes
like,
off, yeah.
this is so good. This is
awesome.
so good.
I'll check it out.
Right? Yeah, they're fantastic. It's almost like a mix of Narnia and Lord of the Rings.
Okay,
right?
okay.
It's just really, really good. But we read through that, and she was like, I can't believe this author. He's also, Andrew Peterson is a well-known and successful singer-songwriter.
Interesting.
And so, and then here he is with the book too. And this is, usually people are dead by the time. And she was so inspired, even me reading the book, this is so good, that there's a point where it's like, she's like, I want to write something. But she knew, she's like, Lord, I don't want to do this. She prayed. But I don't want to do this unless you're in it, because I don't want to waste my time. And unless you build the house, I labor in vain.
Right.
And I know that if I do this, it's going to be years before I have any kind of fruit from this.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So she did, and I saw my wife go to be like, I'm going to commit to write 1,000 to 2,000 words a day, and I'm going to write a book. And then so she did. She committed, and it took her 7 months or so to write her first book, which she read, and I read, and then she just threw in the trash.
Yeah.
Went back to the computer, wrote another one. Looked at it, refined it, threw it in the trash.
Just over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah, refining.
Right. And then she got after year, call it year, on the 3rd year, okay? She's like, okay, I'm going to do this one. And it was a 100-page little, novella, right?
Yeah.
Little 100-page thing. And she was like, I don't know about this one. I don't want to keep going on the story if it's really not that good. And, and she gave it to me, and I read it.
It's like, this is it.
And I looked at her, I was like, baby, this is, you found your voice. This is good. This is good. She's like, you think so? I don't know. And I was like, you know what? We had moved to Tennessee, and there was a guy named Rick, who's this old man that would go to the coffee shop all the time, and I was working at the coffee shop, and I met Rick, And I was like, after I'd been there for like a few months, and he's always in there, I just walked over to him like, hey, Charlton, and he's like, oh, I'm Rick, and he's a published author, all of this stuff with Rick. And so and I was like, I'm going to go ask Rick. So I go to Rick, and I say, hey, Rick, my wife's a writer, and she wrote this little thing. And he's like, oh, yeah, she is? And I said, yeah, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to just take a look at it and tell her what you think, And he said, you know what, Charlton? I'm actually a judge at this competition called Killer Nashville, because he's a crime novelist. He used to be a cop, caught a serial killer. Somebody asked him to write a book, and then he became a published author, and they just kept asking him to write books, right? So he says, well, I'll tell you what, I'm a judge at this big competition. It's a big deal, Charlton, okay? So I'm a judge at this thing. I got to judge all these ones. Have her send me the first 50 pages of her book, and I'll read it when I'm done reading all of these ones, and I'll just put it in my pile at the end.
Okay.
If she doesn't mind, taking some criticism. And it's like she's not going to have an ego. She doesn't have an ego about it,
right.
And if you're going to write, you cannot have an ego.
No, yeah.
It's not going to work, right? And she doesn't. She's very open to okay, tell me what I need to fix, and so on. So, anyway, he, a month or 2 months later, he comes back and he had read it, and he said,
I need the next 50 pages.
First thing he said, get this, he says, it's too late to enter the competition this year, but you really need to enter next year. I've been doing this for 10 years, and this is easily the best I've ever read.
That's awesome, bro.
And you should read it because you have a really good chance of winning.
That's awesome.
And so, or you should enter because you have a really good chance of winning, right? And so she waited, right? So she kept working on the book then. So she's like, okay, I'll keep writing more, right? So she kept working on the book, and this was in August, right? And she couldn't enter again until April. So then she entered. She couldn't enter until April. So she entered in April for the next August thing. Yeah. Right? She becomes a finalist. And so we're like, okay, well, we'll go, we're a finalist. You got this thing. Apparently it's a big deal, whatever. I don't know. I haven't seen any of these things. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not in this world, and she's not either. I mean, she's just been writing on her own, just like her, Right. We don't know. And so we go to this thing. She's a finalist, and we walk in, and it's this big ballroom. And there's tons of people, all nice, fine dining, everything. And then it hit me. I was like,
he told me this was a big deal.
This is a big deal. This is a big deal, honey. And she's like, yeah, it's okay though. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm going to win. I was like, oh no, you're winning.
You're going to win this thing.
You're going to win this thing. I know it.
That's awesome, man.
And then sure enough, she won the thing. And
That's
I was
so cool.
This is so great. And then it came down to okay, well now you have to, she had finished it by then, but now it's okay, now we got to go find a publisher.
Yeah.
Right? But you had this nice award, and that point it's already been vetted. So publishers are always going to those big.
Right.
If you're a writer, you want to submit your things to those things because the publisher are always looking for vetted material to read.
It's reliable.
It's reliable, because it already been vetted by all the judges are published authors.
Yeah.
So it already been vetted by a ton of people.
Yeah.
And so she finished out the book.
Yeah, hold it up.
She ended up getting with Nagano's Press, right? Nagano's, it's a Christian company, and if you're not buying, you should totally buy from Nagano's. Check them out and get from them because they're other believers, and they do really good work. Actually, and I didn't even get this. They published a nice hardback book with a dust jacket. It's 300 some pages long. It reads really nice. It's well done. It's quality. But then they also too, what's really cool about them, and I didn't know this, even with their packaging, they do this I didn't know packaging with books was a thing until they did it.
Okay.
And they do this nice wrap with a sticker on it that says "Read this book to the glory of God."
Oh, that's so dope.
Right.
That's awesome.
Which is really, really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So, but the book itself is you should totally go read the book. Not just because my wife did it, but because it's good. It won some awards.
Give them a little bit of an idea of what's the book? What is the book about?
Yeah. So the book is it's a magical realism book, right? Okay. So real world, but how do you apply? What if magic kind of crept in? I would say that Harry Potter's almost like a magical realism, right? Because the way it was we're not going to a different world.
Yeah.
We're staying in this world.
Right. Right. There's still the Muggles and it's
right.
Just, it's yeah.
Yeah. Right. So you're trying you're not trying
different regions.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're not creating a brand new world. Right. And so the premise of the book is there's this guy who's a widower named George, early 30s, right? His wife dies. He's just I just need to get away from people. I'm going to go be that loner, right? And I just want to be a writer. That's George, okay? And he just wants to get away from people, okay? Well, he goes to this cottage that he inherited because his uncle died. And he was the last descendant, so he inherited this cottage. And he was like, my uncle never told me about this cottage, okay? And he goes out to it this cottage is perfect for me to get away from everybody.
Yeah.
And be a writer. right? And then turns out though, like he looked on the maps, like there's nobody behind them. There's all this land. It's called the meadow, like all this stuff, right? But then there's all these, like he sees somebody. He's like, there's not supposed to be anybody back here. You know, he's out on a trail, and then he sees another person, and the other people are like, who are you and how did you get here? And it turns out behind there's this whole village trapped in time. They're totally trapped in time, and it's all tied to George. He has no idea why. So it's a discovery of what happens, and it's also she like goes into like some really crazy consequences of what it would be like what it is to be trapped in time. So like there's, for example, well, I don't want to ruin it too much.
Don't ruin it.
Really cool stuff in there.
That's
really
awesome.
Cool things she plays with. Great character development. She goes back and forth in the sense like the story holes, where you have two narratives going, right? So she has that in the past narrative going, and a present day with George narrative, where it tie together at the end, and leaves room for a sequel, which you definitely want the sequel. It's like you get to the end, like, okay, I want
give me the next book,
the next book, you know, which is really great. And then what's really cool about it too is like she's a believer, right? We're Christians,
right?
The book is not sitting there pointing to like, hey, it's not a gospel book, but you clearly see like Christ in the book, right? Like, okay, there's like, God is real. There is stuff that happens in this world, like, you know, and there's only one person you can give credit to.
Right. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right, guys, go buy the book. Where can they find the book?
So they can find the book at Naganos. You can actually find it anywhere you're going to buy a book. You can find it on
Amazon.
Barnes & Noble. You can find it on Amazon. But I do recommend going to Naganos.
Right.
Buying it from them, just because you want to support a Christian business.
Absolutely.
And Amazon, like, you can still get it. It's convenient, but you're also not going to get that great packaging, nor are you going to get given your dollars to Amazon.
Yeah.
Give it to Naganos.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
We didn't
Thanks
even
for
get to
having
the
me,
movie,
man.
so we'll have to do this again. But we got to the important stuff.
Yeah,
man.
the good stuff.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, have a good one.
Well, real quick. Actually, before we head out here, I didn't ever ask you these questions.
Oh man, let's hear
So
it.
real quick, action or drama movie?
Who am I with?
Action or drama movie?
Who am I with?
Action or drama? Gotta pick, bro.
Oh, dude. Then I'm gonna go drama.
Classic or new release?
Have I seen it before?
What do you prefer?
I like new movie.
You're the depends
like
guy,
something-
aren't you? You're the depends guy. It depends.
It depends. Well, I really like something I've never seen before.
Okay, fair enough.
So
fair
I
enough.
want to have a new
release.
experience because it sticks with me.
Yeah.
Like if I seen a movie, I remember the movie really well. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Popcorn or candy?
Popcorn.
Popcorn. Old Testament stories or New Testament parables?
Old Testament all day long.
Oh man. Soundtrack or visuals?
That is a tough one. That's a tough one. Soundtrack.
All right,
Makes
man.
the movie.
It does.
Yeah.
It's really awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, guys. We'll check on the next one.